This case and everything you filter in this case is about reasonable doubt.
So, Antonio Armstrong Jr. walked into this courthouse this morning as a defendant, and now he is a convicted capital murderer.
What people get mixed up, we don't have to prove anyone innocent. In fact, the defense doesn't have to prove anything at all unless they're claiming self-defense. But we don't have to show that he's innocent. All we have to show is that there's reasonable doubt that he could have committed this crime.
Without further ado, the highly anticipated episode that will uncover the alleged mysteriously lost evidence that wasn't presented at A.J Armstrong's third trial. Before diving in, please show your support by tapping the subscribe button and notification bell, because trust me, you do not want to miss an episode of this suspense true crime that is captivating audiences worldwide, with its similarities to Alex Murdaugh and the Menendez brothers. A quick shout out to one of my subscribers, Palacios Texas Beauty, for your support, and I officially declare you the foreman of the online jury regarding this case. Again, thank you so much. Fair warning, this episode is a compilation of clips and the purest definition of organized chaos. You'll be mind blown and even more puzzled about this case than before you started watching. All information provided is research, fact-based, public information, and to the best of my knowledge. Myself, as your commentator, will attempt to remain completely unbiased. And due to the graphic nature of the content, viewer discretion is advised. Let's dive right in. On August 16, 2023, A.J Armstrong became known as inmate number 164-33182, as he was shackled and escorted out of a Harris County courtroom and began his life sentence with the possibility of parole in 40 years. Since August 16th, this case seems to be moving at an accelerated pace. AJ's parole hearing has already been scheduled for August 3rd, 2063, when he will be 63 years old. Also, AJ has been transferred to 3 prisons since his conviction. He's currently being housed at the Bird Unit, located roughly 70 miles from his hometown of Houston, Texas. AJ's then lawyer, Rick DeToto, filed an immediate motion to appeal AJ's case, claiming there was a lot of evidence that wasn't presented during trial that could have tremendously impacted the jury's decision. AJ's current lawyer, Pat McCann, filed a motion for a 4th trial on or about September 14, 2023, stating there are 3 pieces of key evidence that warrant a second look. McCann claims he believes there's an alternative theory regarding who could have been responsible for the deaths of Dawn and Antonio Sr. A quick recap for the new audience. On the fateful night of July 29, 2016, in the quiet suburb of Bel Air located in Houston, Texas, neighbors were shocked by the heavy police presence and yellow crime scene tape surrounding the Armstrongs' home. They soon discovered the family's Palmetto Street townhome was involved in a home intrusion that left both Dawn and Antonio shot execution style as they slept in their bedroom. Their then 16-year-old son, AJ, was shocked and terrified by what he heard and witnessed, and immediately called Houston Police Department dispatch for assistance. AJ also called his aunt, Olivia Specs, and his older brother, Joshua, who, based on younger sister Kayra's account, was the first person she recognized on the scene. After 7 years have passed, with 2 mistrials leading to a guilty conviction, many still have doubt and unanswered questions surrounding the latest verdict of guilty and exactly what took place in the Armstrongs' home the night of July 29, 2016.
The person who committed these murders was not somebody suffering from a psychotic episode. It was somebody who had well planned out thought, somebody who took elaborate attempts to go unnoticed by law enforcement, and who was trying to throw the police off their tail.
He had a fight with his parents, yelling and screaming. They were cutting him off, and they were kicking him out. That's motive. That's motive for Josh. If it applies to AJ in that circumstance, it applies to Josh. So we have someone who is having auditory hallucinations, a demon in his head. His parents have just kicked him out, and they're cutting him off.
Josh's mom calling about AJ and his grades were falling and all he wants to do is party now. Can you talk to him? Can you try to steer him on the right path?
Josh's ex-girlfriend Hannah Pallon stated during her August 11th testimony that Josh had a party at his family's home while his parents were out of town. During grandmother Kay Winston's testimony, she provided more feedback on what she witnessed when she went to the family's home the night of the party. She claimed she observed drugs and alcohol hidden in plain sight, with multiple partygoers scattered throughout the Armstrongs' home. Winston stated during her testimony that Josh was aware he shouldn't be doing that. It's unknown if siblings AJ and Kayra were present and if the 20-year-old was left responsible for their care in the absence of his parents. This event took place 2 weeks prior to the double homicide of Dawn and Antonio Sr. This Facebook post from Mother Dawn's profile shows the happy couple were on a business trip in Mexico on July 15, 2016. Winston claimed once the Armstrongs returned back to Houston, a shouting match between mother and child ensued, which ultimately led to Dawn kicking Joshua out of the family home. Prior to Joshua moving out, he shared AJ's third-floor loft and kept his belongings there because Mother Dawn recently converted his bedroom into a home office.
One of the things the defense attorney told you in opening was Antonio Sr. wasn't Josh's biological father, and that made him really angry. He didn't tell you the full quote, though. So I'm going to paint the full picture for you. What he said was, patient becomes tearful when explaining that at 13 years old, his mother told him his father was not his biological dad. Explains feelings of anger, followed by understanding and appreciation for the man he knows as his father.
When Josh came back, he was not himself. His hygiene was bad, he was disheveled, smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. Here's something that kind of went under the radar and I want to talk to you about it. Kayra said he's in the bathroom talking to himself for hours. And it's like he had a voice in his head. Their own expert told you and tried to make it a spectrum, said that at the end of the spectrum when someone has full-blown psychosis, they have auditory hallucinations. They have voices in their head that they're talking to you. That evidence from Kayra takes you all the way back to before this happened.
April 23, 2019, AJ's sister Kayra, who was 12 years old at the time of her parents' murder, took the stand to testify about her family dynamics prior to the incident that took place on July 29, 2016. When Kayra was questioned about Josh's mental health, she stated the following. Josh moved back home a few weeks prior to the incident and wasn't doing well. It's like he was there, but he wasn't there. He was distant and became heavily involved in drugs and began to ignore his personal hygiene. After her parents were murdered, she recalls Josh became violent and began to hear demonic voices in his head. Just a little bit of insider knowledge. Individuals who suffer from mental health illness generally aren't prosecuted to the full extent of the law, especially if their crime took place during a mental relapse. Therefore, I'm not pointing the finger at Josh nor Houston law enforcement. However, hypothetically, if Houston law enforcement would have charged Josh, then getting the conviction of life in prison they gave AJ would have been highly unlikely. And in turn, it would have ruined their conviction rates, possibly jeopardizing their jobs. But let me mind my business because a lot of people ended up unalive regarding this case. So who am I to judge?
When his brother called Josh to the scene and Josh went out there solely because the defendant called him to come out there, he never felt more alone in the world than in that moment.
They did nothing to determine whether or not Josh had an alibi.
Now, this is where it gets tricky. and multiple dishonesties are about to be exposed, so pay very close attention. Hannah gives the impression that she and Josh lived together as a couple for at least 6 months or better prior to the unaliving on July 29, 2016. However, Josh just relocated back to Houston in May after dropping out of Blinn College, and he had an apartment but preferred to stay at the Armstrong's family home before being kicked out because of the party that he threw. Hannah testifies that she went to bed around 10 or 11 on July 28, 2016, leaving Josh awake playing video games with his cousin Trenton Teamer inside of their living room. She then recalls being shaken awake by Josh, who appeared panicked as he informed her that his parents had been shot. He grabbed his shotgun and ran to his parents' home with his cousin Trenton Teamer. However, law enforcement stated on multiple occasions that A.J never entered his parents' bedroom after he heard the gunshots. So how did Hannah know this information before law enforcement and A.J.? Prosecutors stated during trial that Josh drove to the family home that night. They must have realized what I mentioned in my last video, that Josh running down the street with a shotgun and a bottle of water seemed extremely awkward. However, both A.J and Hannah stated Josh ran to the family home. Once Joshua arrived at the home, he was allowed to call Hannah by law enforcement on the scene. However, Hannah called Houston Police Department dispatch and alerted them that there had been a crime at the family home. If Josh was on the scene, law enforcement allowed him to make the phone call, then she was fully aware law enforcement was already on the scene.
I just remember being woken up by Josh yelling, "Babe, get up, somebody's in the house." You know, I was startled. I just woke up out of my sleep and he's like yelling this, and then I see him running out the door.
Okay, ma'am, please, I need for you to calm down for a little bit so I can understand what you're saying. What's going on?
I'm at my boyfriend's apartment, and he just woke me up.
Pilon said that after Josh woke her up, he grabbed a shotgun and ran to the Armstrong home with his cousin.
He grabbed his shotgun. He ran out of the house, got in his car, and drove over to the scene.
My brother ran over.
And he ran over to his house.
Got in his car and drove over to the scene.
Because he lived like 2 minutes down the street because his brother got a call. He just got there and just called me and told me that his parents had been shot.
Now we're in court at trial, and all of a sudden, all this stuff about being the black sheep of the family, and it wasn't his biological father. You hear all this stuff, and I want to let you know, that's the first we're hearing about all this stuff, is in front of you.
I think when Joshua found out that Antonio wasn't his biological father, things changed.
Hannah testified that Josh didn't experience mental health concerns until after his parents were murdered. However, his sister Kayra said she began to notice concerns immediately once Josh dropped out of Blinn College in May and moved back to the family home. Also, Josh is not as responsible as the prosecution would want you to believe. After graduating from Kincaid in 2014, Josh attended Millsap College, where it looks like he was signed to their football team. That was from 2014 to 2015. I assume he didn't cut it on the field playing football, therefore he dropped out. When he dropped out, he attended Blinn College from 2015 to 2016. He dropped out again and then registered to attend the Art Institute located in Houston from 2016 to 2017, but he never attended. Now, this can possibly be due to his mental health disorder. It could also be that he was mourning his parents' death. But it could also mean that Josh never had any intentions of attending the Art Institute. Maybe, just maybe, he, like another true crime favorite located in Houston or somewhere in Texas, I believe it was Bart Whitaker. He lied to his parents as if he was attending college. The parents bought him a Rolex watch. They had him living in a really nice townhome. Then on the day of actual graduation, or as they were preparing for graduation, they took him to a celebration dinner. After attending the celebration dinner, the parents as well as his brother walked into the house, and boom, they were all shot. Dad ended up living, mother and brother ended up dying.
Josh was distant. He acted like the black sheep of the family. He acted like our parents loved us more because we were biologically theirs, Kayra said. She and A.J. were both Dawn and Antonio Sr.'s kids. Josh was just John's son. Kayra says Josh was doing more drugs more often when he came home from school. Quote, he started talking to himself a lot. He stayed in the restroom for hours and hours. He'd sit there and talk to himself. He stopped caring about his appearance. Kayra testified that months after the murders, Josh started becoming violent, using more drugs, and he started hearing, quote, demonic voices in his head. She says Josh had mixed personalities.
I lived with Josh. I was with him every day. I know 120% in my mind that Josh would have never done this.
He was doing things like making lists of the people who could have killed his parents. You don't make lists of people who killed your parents if you were the killer.
Hannah stayed with Josh for a year after the murders. She allegedly left because she feared her safety. Allegedly, on the list of people who possibly murdered his parents, he had Hannah's name on that list as well.
Pallone said her ex's paranoia and depression happened after and because his parents were shot and killed. She told prosecutors both before and after the murder, quote, never once did he put a hand on me, never once did he threaten me.
One last thing about Josh and Hannah, and this is only for those who believe in the supernatural. Hannah posted this on her Facebook in 2011. Those who know, and you remember the movie The Craft and what this represents. Now, I don't know if the pictures are doctored, however, I do know that playing around with the supernatural, sometimes you invite things in. Sometimes things like demonic voices. And Reasonable Doubt says maybe this is why Josh is dealing with the mental health disorders he's dealing with. The family did say Josh was doing fine prior to him leaving Blinn College and moving back to the home. He moved back to Houston. From what I have researched, Hannah is from Houston. This could be the reason for the sudden change in his personality, but who am I to judge?
Josh Armstrong was out there on that street corner with his cousin, and he was picking up the pieces of the family he had left.
Questions asked by Jimmy James regarding gunshot residue, Josh refused to answer, which included his whereabouts, where he was that night. He refused to answer. We know Josh was agitated, and we know that Josh smelled of heavy marijuana.
Homicidal ideations. Would not talk about it. Angry. You can go through those records. This is throughout it. Auditory hallucinations. A woman in his head he wanted to kill.
Well, we learned in court yesterday that they found that he was suicidal, that he had homicidal ideations.
These are from medical records.
And these are all from medical records. Yeah. This is not something that the defendant's family is opining on, or that AJ's family is saying this happened. These are from credible doctors saying that this young man was having these types of hallucinations and ideations.
Thought he was God. Multiple times, witnessed or observed his parents being killed.
Do you guys remember how much they played up on the fact that Josh, the brother, actually stated, I witnessed the murder of my parents?
Right. Go through those records and look at it. They come in without controversy. And as far as you know, for purposes of this trial, they are what they are. When he says he witnessed his parents being murdered, that's what it means. Maybe it was one of the demons in his head who witnessed the murders.
Josh checked himself into Ben Tubb for psychiatric treatment, where all of his psychotic episodes were being documented for the first time. This was 5 months after his parents' murder.
You want to know the truth about Josh? Here's the truth. Josh may have showed very early signs of schizophrenia around the time his parents were murdered. But all the stuff that they want to scare you with about him being psychotic and thinking he was God and all this other stuff, that didn't come until years later.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit.
We have legitimate, credible information about Josh that we believe is relevant to your determination of of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Video that we had concerning another potential a person that could have done this, but yet they didn't allow the evidence.
Is this a relative?
Yes. There was video of Josh saying what he tried to do, burning down the house, things. It was on video, but they wouldn't allow that into the trial.
Something else we heard that DeToto certainly keyed in on was AJ's brother.
Yeah.
The older brother who we learned in court yesterday apparently lit a fire at another family member's home just within the last 2 weeks.
There was another point where he was trying to cleanse the home, I believe it was, when he put a set of fire inside the home in the oven.
I think you can agree with me that it's credible and reliable and relevant information in this case. We're not just singling him out because he has mental illness.
The forensic psychiatrist in this case told you that whenever somebody has signs of schizophrenia, there's normally an event that will trigger it into full-blown psychosis. And that event in this case for Josh Armstrong was his parents' death.
Let's say AJ spoke with someone and they wrote down those notes, and AJ told that person he witnessed his parents murdered. These two gentlemen would be falling over themselves to get in front of you to tell you this is a confession.
Josh was tested for gunshot residue, which came back negative, and he was questioned by detectives on the scene, and after 4 minutes of questioning, they decided Josh was not a suspect. Cousin Trenton Teamer, who was also on the scene, was never questioned or tested for GSR.
Here's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that Josh Armstrong, suffering from a psychotic disorder, left his girlfriend and his cousin. He put on a mask to go to his own parents' house. He got in through the garage, which we all know is going to make a lot of noise. He didn't trip any alarm. He then went up to the second floor, all under psychosis, and he went and found his dad's gun in the nightstand, a gun that there is no evidence Josh Armstrong has ever touched or fired.
Hannah tells you, hey, Josh is at my house. And I fell asleep between 10 and 11, and I went to bed at about, Josh woke me up around 2-ish. But Trenton Teamer was there. I don't remember if it was Dagnall or the other homicide officers. Yeah, we knew about Trenton Teamer. In fact, it was written in their notes. Now let me tell you this. If we attributed that to AJ, if his girlfriend said he was with Trenton Teamer, they would be falling over themselves to interview Trenton.
AJ's first trial began in March 2019. The jury couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. In April 2019, AJ's trial was declared a mistrial. District Attorney Kim Ugg immediately decided to trial AJ again. Before AJ's second trial, possible accessory to the crime Trenton Teamer was unalived in June 2021, which I confirmed on his mother's Facebook account. Now, with Josh being in a catatonic state and the only other possible witness now unalived, AJ's second trial began in October 2022. This trial also ended with the hung jury.
I really wanted to just be an alibi to Josh, but it kind of didn't work because in court they were like, well, you were asleep, he could have left, and you just have to really kind of answer yes or no. And I mean, yes, I was asleep. Not a heavy sleeper, I would have woken up.
In order to believe that he, in fact, AJ, had committed both of these murders, what was the other person doing? And they're saying, from my sources tell me, there's no way either one of them would have stood by while the other one was being murdered. And so because of that, the family believes that potentially there were two assailants as opposed to just one.
And whoa child, This is only the first part of uncovering the lost and hidden evidence regarding the A.J. Armstrong trial. When you're done with this video, check out the Reasonable Doubt, the A.J. Armstrong story playlist. Let me get you to subscribe and tap the notification bell because trust, things are just heating up and you do not want to miss an episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my subscribers and thank you to Palacio, Texas Beauty once again. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.